Hi, I'm Elaine Harding. Welcome to my blog .stampwithelaine.com and welcome to today's project, which is this double pop-up card. It looks like an ordinary card, but then when you open it up there's a double framed shadow box inside the card. So let's gather our supplies. You'll need the Merry Moose Photopolymer stamp set, which is bundled with the Moose Punch. If you purchase them together, it will save you 10%. The other stamp set I'm using is Winter Woods to stamp the background here. And I'm also using the Stamper Artist. The card base is in crumb cake. It's half an A4 sheet. In Europe this measures 5 7/8 by 8 1/4. In metric that's 14.85 by 21 centimeters folded in half. To make the pop-up mechanism, which is the double framed shadow box inside the card, you need a crumb cake base, 6 inches by 7.5 inches. In metric that's 15.2 by 19.1 centimeters. You'll need to score this piece at 1/2 inch on the long side, then at 3.5 inches, 4 and 7. In metric that's 1.3, 8.9, 10.2 and 17.8 centimeters. Then rotate your cardstock a quarter turn and score at 3 inches. In metric that's 7.6 centimeters. Burnish the score lines. Set that to side whilst I run through the rest of the cardstock that you'll need. For the card front, you'll need a piece of cherry cobbler. This measures 3 3/4 inches by 5.5. In metric that's 9.5 by 14 centimeters. And then there's a Whisper White layer that goes on top, which measures 3 5/8 by 5 3/8. And in metric that's 9.2 by 13.7. The stitch shapes for dies, and we're going to be using the largest and the second largest one. You need to cut 2 Whisper White stitch squares with the largest stitch square die. You need to cut 2 pieces of cherry cobbler as a matte layer for the largest stitch square Whisper White piece, and the cherry cobbler mat will measure 2 3/4 inches by 2 3/4 inches. In metric that's 7 by 7 centimeters. With the smaller second largest frame, you need to cut 2 frames in cherry cobbler. That's to go on the front of the frame here to give it some extra strength. To the sentiments, you need 2 cherry cobbler pieces for the matte layer, and this is 1 1/8 by 3 3/4 inches. In metric that's 2.9 by 9.5 centimeters, and the Whisper White pieces is 1 inch by 3 5/8 inches. That's 2.5 by 9.2 centimeters, and that goes on top. The inks I'm using are Early Espresso, Crumb Cake, Soft Suede, Cherry Cobbler and Garden Green. Garden Green and Cherry Cobbler Stampin' Write markers. Soft Suede Stamping Blend combo and Grey Granite combo. Holiday Rhinestones and the Cherry Cobbler Striped Diagonal Ribbon. First we'll make a shadow box frame. Orient your cardstock that you've scored with the 1/2 inch score lines at the top and bottom. Fold it in half. Okay, then use the second largest of the stitch square frame and center it on your cardstock. And the reason I've folded it in half, you can die cut both squares at once, then it will mirror the image on the opposite side once it's cut, if you cut it both together. A magnetic platform, base cutting plate. Place your cardstock on top with the cutting edge face down, top cutting plate, and then I'm ready to run it through the Big Shot, so I'll do that off camera. Now, I've die cut my frame, so now I want to glue this frame on top to strengthen it. Make sure nothing's showing from the bottom. I've applied adhesive to the underside of the frame. Adhere it to this other frame. Make sure, oops, nothing is showing from the inside. Then I'll need to cut from this 1/2 inch score line right up to the top of the frame here. So it's the I'll show you. So you need to cut from here right up to the top of the frame here, okay? So that's allows you to bend the frame, fold it in half, like so. You also need to make a snip at the bottom here. Okay, now set that aside until you need it, and we'll do a bit of stamping. First I'm going to stamp the mousse in crumb cake on my Stamparatus. Clean the stamp, ink it up with soft suede. I'm just going to wipe off the ink from the antlers. Then stamp again. Got that two-toned effect. Punch it out with the mousse punch for even white border all round. But it's difficult to get stamping dimensionals on the legs and things. I've just punched out 2 extra mousse. So I'll glue that on top of each other to give me that raised look. Now I want to add some extra detail on the mousse, not just a blank canvas. So in order to add the detail, I'm just going to place my mousse on top of the stamp, align it, and then just run my finger over it to stamp it. You probably get a bit inky. Then I'll put my thumb on one end to lift it up so it doesn't smudge, and then I've got that detail there. Can you see that? Then I can glue this on top of the other 2. You can, of course, just stamp the outline in Memento Black and then colour it in with your stamping blends. Now I'm going to be using these 2 trees as to stamp the front of the card. So I'll use the larger one first and stamp it in the middle. And then without re-inking, I'll stamp on either side. Smaller tree. I'll use this image here to stamp the ground. Use this sentiment, Merry Christmas. Stamp it in cherry cobbler at the bottom here. I've already pre-stamped and fussy cut a scarf, so I've just glued that on. Add some rhinestones. Adhere that to the cherry cobbler layer. Next we need to adhere the layers for inside the shadow box. I'm gluing these so we don't lose them. Okay, and then we need to stamp on those. Stamp the little tree in garden green. Did you know that if you own a Stamparatus, we've actually got a new foam mat that has a sort of plasticky grid paper which has been glued on top of the foam mat, so it means that you can just wipe it clean, and you don't have to buy the pads. I'm still using the pads because it's got the inches measurement. This one is metric, so the squares are a centimetre apart, whereas I'm an inches girl, so I prefer to work in inches. How did that get so dirty? I'm going to stamp the ground. Stamp another mousse again. Change ink colour to soft suede. And do the same trick, taking off part of the ink from the antlers. Punch him out. And punch out another blank. Swap ink pads to Early Espresso and stamp this outline image of the mousse. And I want one with the stamped image. And another. I'll bring in my blends. I just want a lighter antler. Switch to the dark shade, soft suede, and just colour in the shadows following the stamped image. Glue one of the mousse over to one side. Pop a scarf on, which I stamped and previously die cut to save time. Use a glue dot to stick the hat on. Glue this to the inside panel, and then we can stamp the other one. I'm going to stamp this little raccoon on the log first in Early Espresso, and then use the crumb cake light and grey granite to colour him in. Start with the dark bits first. Colour in the log. Now stamp the sentiment. Enjoy the stillness of the season. I'm going to stamp it in this corner here, but you don't want to stamp it too high, otherwise you won't see it. And then you can stamp the trees, and you want to stamp the log first so you can gauge where to put your trees afterwards. And glue it on and pop it inside. Now we want to glue the top to the bottom, so apply a bit of adhesive on the bottom here, and just do it one at a time, and make sure that it's straight. Hold it until it bonds, and do the same here. Be careful you don't get glue on your stamped image, so you want to put the glue in the middle so it doesn't seep out at the sides, and then align the tab at the top with the tab at the bottom. And it's best to use wet adhesive because it will give you a bit of wiggle room. There you go. Now sort of train your box to shut this way. So you want this top of the shadow box showing, and the bottom is where the frame is. So this bit that's exposed, when you close it, the 1/2 inch score line will show, and this is where you need to put adhesive on. So pop that into your cardstock, make sure that the edge of and the corner, the point is buttered up to the score line, or just shy of the score line, and then using a pencil just draw a line on the frame, close the card, flip it over to the other side, open it up and draw the mirroring line on there. You can rub it off in a minute, but that is really as a guide for you to do some stamping. So I'm using this Christmas tree image here from Winter Woods, and I'm just inking it up in crumb cake. So rub off those lines. When I close the frame, the 1/2 inch score line is at the bottom. So I'm going to put a bit of adhesive on here. And I want to glue that down, making sure it's shy of the corner of that is shy of the score line, and that the corner of the frame at the top and on the side is within the card base. Now I'm going to apply adhesive to this side and then close the card so it sticks to this side. And then when I open the card, make sure it's opening freely. It will stand up. So we need to allow that to bond and dry properly. So while it's doing that, we'll stamp the rest of the pieces. So there's 2 more to do, which is this section here for writing the name of the person you're addressing it to, and then obviously from you. Garden green ink pad, ink up the ornament, clean it and switch ink pads to cherry cobbler and stamp it a little further up. use the journaling end of the pen to draw a line up there. Do the same with the garden green. Cherry cobbler to stamp the presents. Garden green marker and just colour in the bow. Glue this bit and glue these to the card base. Okay, so that's the inside of the card finished. Close the card and run some double-sided tape across here. You can pop your ribbon on and leave enough to tie a bow. Now I can glue the front of the card. Make sure that's equidistant on the top and the bottom. Tie a bow to keep the card shut. Trim off the ribbon. It does require a bit of work, but the results are fabulous. So I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, then do subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it, and pop back for more inspiration next time. The last episode of my Countdown to Christmas series is this Friday. You'll find all the links for the supplies I use below this video in the Show More section, and if you need a comprehensive list of the measurements, it will be on my blog, and I'll put the link in as well in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye.